Coming up, Malaysia not ready for GST reinstatement. Malaysia is not ready for the reinstatement of Goods and Services Tax GST anytime soon. In the Dewan Rakyat today, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim reiterated that the people's income and threshold must first be increased and at a reasonable level for GST to be reinstated.
Jadi saya tidak fikir dalam 6 bulan atau 1 tahun kita boleh pertimbangkan. Pendapatan rakyat mesti naik dulu. Jadi threshold itu agak munasabah. Semua negara yang melaksanakan GST itu termasuk Singapura atau Canada atau New Zealand itu dikira pendapatan minimum rakyat itu agak munasabah untuk hidup. Sekarang ini masih terlalu ramai. 130,000 kemiskinan tegar, B40 yang ramai.
He added that revenue collection and strict enforcement to avoid tax evasion was sufficient as an alternative to reintroducing the GST. Datuk Seri Anwar said the government would also not compromise on elite groups who avoided paying taxes and had overseas account. Nearly 80% of the labour shortage in the plantation industry has been resolved so far, with the remaining underway. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Fadilah Yusof said labour shortage, however, remain challenging in certain parts of the country such as Sarawak. Datuk Seri Fadilah, who's also Plantation and Commodities Minister, said the challenge was to bring in people from the source countries because their practices, rules and regulations were beyond the Malaysian government's control.
Almost there. So I think it's almost at 80% now coming in. But the challenge will be in certain part, for example, Sarawak, certain areas, because in Sarawak they are not receiving or accepting Bangladesh to work in Sarawak. So definitely there will be challenge in getting more Indonesian to come in. But as far as process and procedures are concerned, in terms of application approval, it has almost 100% achieved.
Meanwhile, Datuk Seri Fadilah stressed the importance of Malaysia engaging the international communities, whether consultants or industry players, and meeting the regional and international standards and practices. The Domestic Trade and Cost of Living Ministry, KPDN, has identified 36 cases of subsidised diesel leakage. It involves confiscations amounting to over 890,000 ringgit nationwide in 11 days since Optiris was launched on 1st of March. Minister Datuk Seri Salahuddin Ayub said over 400,000 litres of fuel were seized in 464 raids conducted nationwide.
Jadi saya sangat yakin dengan keberkesanan dan juga komitmen Kementerian KPDN bersama dengan kementerian yang lain, kita akan dapat sebenarnya mengawal ketirisan ini dengan lebih efisien pada masa akan datang. Sebab itu saya percaya KPDN saja tidak boleh work in silos. Kita kena ada collaboration dengan beberapa kementerian yang lain, barulah menampakkan keberkesanan.
KPDN will also be preparing a report regarding the results of the implementation of Optiris in the near future. Through Optiris, KPDN empowers stricter enforcement across all levels and localities, including islands, border areas, industry, exports, urban and rural. KPDN also established new committees for Optiris, namely the driver unit that handles policies and the technical unit which manages operational affairs. The operation will be conducted for 6 months until 31st August this year, is to combat subsidised diesel leakages. It involves 5 ministries and 8 government agencies. Kelantan recorded the highest number of criminal cases related to drugs abuse with 3,683 cases last year. Chief Justice Tun Tengku Maimun Tuan Mat said of that number, the registration of cases in the High Court under Section 39B of the Dangerous Drugs Act 1952 stood at 72 cases, 254 cases in the Sessions Court and 3,357 cases in the Magistrates Court. She said this when speaking at the opening ceremony of the Kota Baru Court Complex today, officiated by Tengku Mahkota of Kelantan, Dr. Tengku Muhammad Faiz Petra, Ibni Almarhum Sultan Ismail Petra. She said last year saw a total of 13,579 civil and crime cases registered at Kota Baru, of which 6,412 cases were related to drugs. At the High Court, she said 72 drug cases were registered, 253 cases were at the Magistrates Court and 3,357 cases at the Sessions Court. The Home Ministry's KDN Enforcement and Controls Division has seized 22,926 sex toys worth 1.1 million ringgit following a raid on a warehouse in Bukit Mertajam, Pulau Pinang on 15 February. Division Secretary Nick Yusaimi Yusof said during the raid, a woman aged 29 had confessed that the toys were for her business that she began last year, and she was arrested to facilitate investigations. He said various banned items believed to have been brought in from China were seized, adding that they were sold online on e-commerce platforms at prices between 70 ringgit and 450 ringgit.
Macam-macam jenis lah. Saya pun tak pasti lah. Bertujuan membanteras pengedaran, penjualan dan pembelian alat mainan seks yang dilarang kerana berlawanan dari segi moral dan budaya di negara ini. Ia tidak diterima. Undang-undang dan peraturan tidak menerima barang ini untuk berada dalam negara. Operasi dilakukan berdasarkan risikan dan pemantauan yang dijalankan ke atas premis yang menumpukan sasaran jualan di seluruh negara melalui kaedah dalam talian.
The case is being investigated under Section 7, Subsection 1 of the Printing, Presses and Publications Act 1984 and Section 292, Subsection A of the Penal Code. In the foreign segment, China warns AUKUS submarines deal on path of error and danger. China warned on Tuesday that Australia, the United Kingdom and the United States AUKUS were treading a path of error and danger after they unveiled a nuclear-powered submarines deal. Under the AUKUS Pact, Australia is to get its first nuclear-powered subs, at least 3 from the US, then build a new model with US and British technology under an ambitious plan to bulk up Western muscle across the Asia-Pacific in the face of a rising China. Beijing accused the 3 Western allies of inciting an arms race, saying the security deal was a typical case of Cold War mentality.
中方已多次强调，美英澳建立所谓的3方安全伙伴关系，推进核潜艇及其他尖端军事技术合作，这是典型的冷战思维，只会刺激军备竞赛，破坏国际核不扩散体系，损害地区和平稳定。 爱好和平的国家对此表达了严重关切和坚决反对。
US President Joe Biden has stressed that Australia, which joined a newly formed alliance with Washington and London known as AUKUS 18 months ago, will not be getting nuclear weapons. However, acquiring submarines powered by nuclear reactors puts Australia in an elite club and at the forefront of the US-led efforts to push back against China's military expansion. The Lebanese pound sank to a historic low against the dollar on the parallel market Tuesday as banks in the crisis-hit country resumed an open-ended strike. The Lebanese pound, officially pegged at 15,000 to the dollar, was trading at 100,000 against the greenback, a dizzying plunge from 1,507 before the economic crisis hit in 2019. The currency's market value was at around 60,000 to the dollar in late January. Tuesday's low marked another somber milestone in an economic meltdown that has pushed most of the population into poverty. Despite the gravity of the crisis, the country has no president and only a caretaker government amid persistent deadlock between rival alliances in parliament. Lebanese banks that have long imposed draconian withdrawal restrictions were closed on Tuesday as they resumed an open-ended strike. The strike began early last month to protest what the Association of Banks in Lebanon described as arbitrary judicial measures against lenders after depositors filed a lawsuit to retrieve savings. Taiwan unveiled its first portable attack drone today, an unmanned aerial vehicle similar to a US model used in Ukraine's fight against Russia as China steps up military pressure on the island. According to the military-run National Chung Shan Institute of Science and Technology, the single US drone designed to be small enough to be carried in a backpack can stay in the air for 15 minutes with a maximum flying distance of 10 kilometers. Japan announced the official start of Tokyo's cherry blossom season on Tuesday, 10 days earlier than usual and tied with a record early start seen only twice before. In past years, the country's meteorologists have linked the increasingly early blossom to climate change, and temperatures in Tokyo have been unseasonably mild in recent days. Lahore in Pakistan jumped more than 10 places to become the city with the worst air in the world in 2022, according to an annual global survey by a Swiss maker of air purifiers. The report said India in Pakistan experienced the worst air quality in the Central and South Asia region, where nearly 60% of the population lives in areas where the concentration of PM 2.5 particles is at least 7 times higher than WHO's recommended levels. Coming up in sports, KDAFC's quest for top spot continues after win over KUFC. The victory Kedah Darul Aman FC or KDAFC had over Kelantan United FC yesterday is crucial to the team's quest for the top spot in the season Super League. KDAFC assistant head coach Victor Andrag said the 3-2 win at KUFC's ground uplifted the team's spirit after 2 consecutive defeats in the previous actions. But after the match at the Sultan Muhammad V Stadium, Victor said his players need to be consistent and keep their momentum going in the next match in an effort to clinch the top spot.
Sebenarnya kita memang mengharapkan malam ni kita harus mengutip 3 mata penuh sebab setelah 2 kekalahan berturut-turut, so kita tak nak moral itu jatuh lagi. So we have to come back. So this is the right time untuk kita nak collect 3 poin, and then bila beraksi di padang sendiri, home ground, nanti kita akan dapat pulihkan keadaan pasukan dari segi moral team.
Playing before 1,000 spectators, Kelantan United first opened the score in the 22nd minute through Brazilian import striker David Silva. Kedah's equaliser came in the 34th minute through a header from Brazilian import player William Sousa, and then took the lead after Manuel Gasparini converted a penalty for the second goal in the 44th minute. Continuing the second half, Kedah managed to add a third goal through substitute Muhammad Al-Hafiz Harun in the 79th minute through another penalty. Kelantan United, however, closed the gap with their second goal through Ian Victor Silva's penalty in the 88th minute, but it was not enough to prevent Kedah from collecting 3 full points after the final whistle. After 4 matches, KDAFC hold the 4th spot in the Super League standings with 4 points from 1 win, 1 draw and 2 losses, while Kelantan United remain at the bottom with just 1 point. Meanwhile, Kelantan United head coach Thomas Tuchel said that despite their home defeat, he did not entirely place the blame on the defensive line.
I believe we played 50-50 game with Kedah. What is good sign. The players follow the tactical plan. They show the character. They fight. We started well. We scored the first goal. So I don't think it's about the back four. Of course, Latif was suspended, so it was not easy to bring Arash.
Ahead of the 2023 Cambodia SEA Games, Olympic Council of Malaysia OCM President Tan Sri Muhammad Nurza Zakaria has laid out a challenge to Malaysian chef de mission Datuk Muhammad Nasir Ali to better his previous achievement during the 2015 Singapore SEA Games, which is one of the country's best achievement in the games abroad. The national contingent had returned home from Singapore with 62 gold, 58 silver and 66 bronze to place 4th overall, but could only managed 6th overall in Hanoi last year with 39 gold, 45 silver and 90 bronze. According to Tan Sri Nurza, this year's Games would be a true indicator of Malaysian athletes post-COVID-19 pandemic standards, as most international championships were delayed or cancelled from 2020 till early last year.
I was challenging them to basically try their very best to actually bring more medals. Because as it is now, if you look at our performance in Hanoi, we were at the 6th position. So I think we should try our very best to improve our position. And I think CDM and also Deputy CDM, they actually know their responsibilities.
Malaysia is slated to send 677 athletes, 403 men and 274 women, along with 237 officials to the 32nd SEA Games in Phnom Penh, Cambodia from 5th to 17th May. He said the increased participation was to provide the opportunity to more young athletes and juniors for exposure in the run-up to the 2025 SEA Games in Thailand and the 2027 edition in Malaysia. Pep Guardiola admits his Manchester City reign will be defined by success in the Champions League, no matter how many times his side win the Premier League. City will face Bundesliga high flyers Leipzig in the second leg of their Champions League last 16 tie early tomorrow, looking to advance to the quarterfinals for a 6th successive season. Guardiola's men were held to a 1-1 draw in the first leg, but are fancied to progress in front of their own fans at the Etihad Stadium. For Guardiola, for all his domestic glory with City, it is the Champions League that remains the holy grail. City lost to Chelsea in the 2021 final, but have also endured a series of agonising exits from the knockout stages, with last season astonishing late collapse against Real Madrid in the semi-finals, an especially bitter blow. For City to win the Champions League, they will need Erling Haaland at his best. There are still critics of Haaland's lack of involvement in City's build-up play, and Guardiola believes that the Norway striker can improve that side of his game. Meanwhile, RB Leipzig head coach Marco Rose expects a peak performance of his team against City. According to the German coach, a balanced, less aggressive approach towards the Premier League team is needed. Awareness of City's Haaland will further play an essential role in keeping goals by the English team at bay, Rose stated, as Leipzig had to endure past defeats when facing the forward player. Alright, so that concludes this evening's news at 10. In our top story, Phase 2 of Rahmah Cash Aid to begin next month. Join us again at 12:30 tomorrow afternoon. I'm Shuhaida Arifin. Stay tuned to Saluran Berita RTM and have a pleasant evening.